Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club. This is episode 2 of our playthrough of Eldritch Horror, and we're playing against Azathoth. The Doom track is currently at 14. Our investigators have managed to place one clue token on our first mystery, Occult Research. We need to get 3 more of those for a total of 4 to complete our first mystery. There is an active, ongoing rumor card called Stars Aligned, and we need to place a total of 2 clue tokens there to solve that rumor. It has a ongoing effect, a reckoning effect, that is going to lower the Doom track by 1 every time there is a reckoning effect. We've completed a total of 4 Mythos cards, so stage 1 of Azathoth's Mythos deck is complete. We'll be moving into stage 2, where we're going to have a total of 2 green, 3 yellow, and 1 more blue Mythos card. So we're going to have a 50% chance of drawing a yellow card, which is going to cause a reckoning effect, and then in turn moving the Doom track down. So we need to try to solve that as quickly as possible. Our lead investigator is Charlie Kane, and he is currently in Rome, so we'll begin with him. Charlie's going to begin his action phase in Rome, and he'll start by focusing. So he'll gain a focus token. That'll be his second focus token. He also has a clue token. His next action is going to be acquire assets. He has a influence of 4, and his personal assistant gives him a +1 bonus to that. So we'll be rolling 5 dice for this test. And he comes up with no successes. Well, we're going to use our reroll that we have from the personal assistant, and that will allow us 1 reroll of a die during an acquire assets action. And he's missed on all fronts. Not good. Okay, that completes Charlie Kane. Will move on to Carolyn Fern, and she's in London. Carolyn's going to remain in London. She'll start with a focus action, and that'll give her her second focus token. She also has 3 clue tokens. And I think next she's going to attempt a acquire assets action. She has an influence of 3. She also has 2 resource tokens, so we can use those to modify our roll here. So here's the roll for her acquire assets. And she rolls no successes. All right. Well, I think she's going to spend her 2 resource tokens, and then we can use those to purchase some items from the reserve. And I think she's going to spend the 2 resource tokens, and she'll end up picking up this Expert's Blade. It's an item, magical relic weapon. It says when you gain this card from the deck or reserve, gain 1 talent condition, and that allows her to add +2 to strength during a combat encounter. So we're going to draw a talent for her. The talent is revealed to be Quick Study. Once per round, when you gain this card or another talent condition, you may gain 1 additional talent condition. If you do so, flip this card. All right, we'll add that to her player card. And then we'll replenish the reserve, and that ends up to be the Chief Inspector. It has a cost of 2. It's an ally. Gain +1 for observation. Gain +2 observation during research encounters. Well, that would be pretty good. And that's going to end Carolyn Fern's action phase. We'll move on to Silas Marsh. He is in Panama. All right, Silas needs to get another research, or another clue token, I should say, in order to solve the Stars Are Aligned ongoing rumor. So I think what he'll do is he's going to travel by rail to Houston, Texas, space 6, and there's a clue token there that he'll be able to attempt to get during the encounter phase. And then when Silas arrives in Houston, he's going to focus. That'll gain him a focus token. He has a focus now and 2 resource tokens. And now it's Diana Stanley's turn. She's in Shanghai, and I think what she'll do is she's going to do a focus and a gain resources action. That'll be her 2 actions. That'll give her 1 focus and a resource. Now we'll move on to our encounters phase. We'll begin with our lead investigator, Charlie Kane. He's in Rome, and he's going to do a token encounter, and he's going to attempt an otherworld encounter to see if he can close that gate in Rome. The other world is revealed to be Azathoth, and he's going to attempt to close the gate. Here's the text. You find a dead Migo that was carrying a large container of the strange metal known as Tokal. Although valuable, the substance is also extremely heavy, and the container proves difficult to move. He has to do a strength -1 test. Well, Charlie Kane isn't the strongest person in the world. He has a strength of 2. So he'll be rolling 1 die for the test. He does have a couple focus tokens and a clue token if he chooses to use those for rerolls. All right, here's his strength test. And he rolls a 3, and that's a fail. All right. Well, I think we'll attempt to spend a focus token and re-roll that. Okay, here's his re-roll. And once again, he fails. All right, I guess we'll read the fail condition. It says the container proves too heavy to carry. Gain a back injury condition. You take only a small sample of study, or to study, a lore -1 test. Well, once again, he's going to be rolling 1 die. His lore is a 2, and with the -1 modifier, that gives him 1 die. So we got to get our back injury condition. So Charlie gains a back injury, and here's his roll for lore. That time he's successful. It says if you pass, the alien substance gives you insight into the arcane arts. Gain a spell. All right, and Charlie is going to gain an intervene spell. It's an incantation. When another investigator resolves a combat encounter, you may test lore. If you pass, that investigator gains +3 strength during the encounter. Then flip the card. All right, well, that is going to complete Charlie's encounter phase, and we'll move on now to Carolyn Fern. All right, Carolyn is in London, and it's a good spot to spawn clue tokens. So we'll take the Europe encounter deck and draw a card from there, and we'll read London. And the text reads, at the new reptile house, you try to recapture a snake. You have to test strength -1. Carolyn has a strength of 2. And so she'll be rolling 1 die for the test. She rolls a 6. She's successful. If you pass, the heptologist gratefully tell you about the snake's homeland. Gain 1 clue and spawn a clue on a wilderness space of your choice. All right, that's great. And I think she's going to spawn that clue in the wilderness of Dakar. That's space 10. And now we'll move on to Silas Marsh. He is in Houston, Texas, and he's going to attempt a token encounter. And he's going to try some research and see if he can pick up that clue token. All right, Houston is a city location, so we'll read the city portion. It says, a police car has been overturned by a Zyklodian. You race to rescue the men trapped inside. Test strength. All right, Silas has a strength of 3. And he does have 1 focus token that could assist him. All right, we'll make a roll then for a strength test. He'll be rolling 3 dice. And here's the roll. And he's unsuccessful. Oh, jeez. All right, he's going to spend a focus token and attempt to re-roll 1 of those dice. And again, he fails. Well, he has no other option. We'll have to read the fail condition. If you fail, the gray monstrosity attacks you, lose 3 health. Okay, that is going to reduce Silas down to 8 health. And that's going to end his encounter. And now we'll move on to Diana Stanley. She's in Shanghai, and she's also going to do a token encounter, and we'll have her attempt to research that clue token that's there. And the card reads, "You scour countless tomes for a way to keep Azathoth at bay, but they only confirm your worst fears. Advance the omen by 1. Your only hope is a test that suggests truth can be found in madness. You may spend 2 sanity to gain the clue." Well, the first step is we have to advance the omen, and that's going to move it to the green comet space. There is 1 Eldritch token there, so that is going to move the Doom track down. That'll move it from 14 to 13. Well, Diana has to decide if that's worth giving up 2 sanity for. That would move her down to 2 sanity. She would gain the clue, and we'd be able to add that to the occult research mystery. Well, I think we'll risk it. The way I'm rolling, it doesn't seem I'm going to get them any other way other than by kind of stealing them, so to speak. So we'll move our sanity level for Diana down to 2, and she'll add that clue token towards the mystery. And now we'll add that clue token towards the occult research, and that'll give us a total of 2 tokens. And we're halfway there to completing our first mystery. And that's going to complete our encounter phase, so we will move on to the Mythos phase. And we draw the Mythos card entitled The King in Yellow. We begin with a spawning of clues, so we're going to spawn 2 clue tokens. Clues will be spawned in San Francisco and the heart of Africa. And the next portion of the card says we have to place a rumor token in London. So we've placed the rumor token along with 1 Eldritch token in London. And now we'll move on to the ongoing rumor. It reads, "Despite the unexplained deaths and the surrounding turmoil, the notorious play has opened. Many praise the show for radically changing their lives. Others leave the theater feeling nauseous, if they leave at all." All right, it's an ongoing rumor, The King in Yellow. As an encounter, an investigator on London may attempt to put a stop to the vile performance, making an influence -1 test. If he passes, he may spend clues equal to the number of investigators to solve this rumor. All right, well, I have 1 advantage, and that is Carolyn Fern is in London right now, and she has 4 clue tokens. So we would be able to theoretically get rid of this if she can pass that influence -1 test. It does have a reckoning effect, and it says investigators as a group lose sanity equal to the number of Eldritch tokens on this card, unless the lead investigator gains a blight condition. If the lead investigator does not gain the condition, place 1 Eldritch token on this card. All right. Well, the only fortunate thing out of this whole deal is that Carolyn is in London and she has the clue tokens to solve this thing, which would be great. And that's going to complete the Mythos phase. We'll move on to a new round. We could change our lead investigator token, but I think we'll leave it with Charlie Kane. And we'll begin with him for the new actions. Charlie is in Rome, and I think he's going to begin with a focus action. That'll gain him a focus token, and then now he's going to do his usual, and he's going to attempt to acquire assets. With the help of his personal assistant, he'll be rolling a total of 5 dice. Here's the roll. And that time he got 1 success. So we're going to do the re-roll that the assistant offers, and we'll re-roll a die. He got a 2nd success, so he has a total of 2. Now we always can take a bank loan out, and that would give us an additional 2 successes, but 2 2 successes is enough. I think Charlie is going to take the Chief Inspector for 2. And he's going to give that to Carolyn Fern, and she's in London. We'll replenish the reserve, and that is a Profane Tome. You may re-roll 1 die when resolving a will test during a combat encounter. That has a cost of 1. All right, that's going to complete Charlie's turn, and we'll move on to Carolyn Fern in London. All right, Carolyn is in London, and she's going to eventually, during the encounter phase, attempt to solve that ongoing rumor there. So we'll try to get her as much support as possible. She has 4 clues. She has 2 focus tokens. And her health and sanity are... Let's check that out. Yeah, she is a couple points down on sanity. So I think what we'll do for this first action is we're going to have her do a rest action. Her passive ability is when you or another investigator on your space perform a rest action, that investigator may recover 1 additional sanity. So that'll recover both sanity that she is short, and that will bring her back up to a total of 7. And for Carolyn's second action, I think she's going to gain resources. All right, that's going to complete her action phase, and we'll move on to Silas Marsh. He's in Houston, Texas. All right, Silas is going to begin with a rest action. Now, he has a condition called meditation. When you perform a focus action or a rest action, gain 1 focus or recover 1 sanity. All right, so that's great. So I think Silas is going to recover 1 health. That'll bring him up to a total of 6, and 1 sanity will give him back up to 4. So he'll take that focus token as the bonus for the meditation. And then as his second action, he's going to focus, and that'll earn him a 2nd focus token. All right, now we move on to Diana Stanley. She's in Shanghai, and there is a clue token available in Sydney, so I think we're going to try to get her to Sydney. I just discovered that Diana had a detain condition on her, so she wasn't able to do that focus and gain resources action that she did in the turn. So I guess to rectify this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to return those. The only action she could have done was to test influence in an attempt to discard the detained card. So I think we'll try to rectify that right now. So this would have been the action she would have taken in the action phase, and that is to attempt to the local action testing influence, and if she can pass, she can discard the card. She did pass. Okay, so that means we can get rid of the detained card. She won't get her focus or resource action that she had, but at least that's done. Now we'll move on to the encounter step that she should be at. I intended to say action step. All right, so now we're in the action phase. She is going to attempt to get to Sydney, so I think we'll start out by having her prepare for travel. So she's going to gain a ship ticket, and then she's going to conduct a move action. So we'll have her move to Indonesia. She'll spend the ship ticket and then continue on to Sydney. And that's going to complete our actions phase. We'll move on to the encounter phase. And we'll begin with Charlie Kane, and I think he's once again going to attempt to close that gate in Rome. And this time, his otherworld encounter is in the Dreamlands. You are strictly admonished that in the city of Uthor, no man may kill a cat. As a result, you see the city is filled with cats. If you know the language, you can communicate with these highly intelligent creatures. Test lore. All right, Charlie has a lore value of 2. And here's Charlie's roll. And he's unsuccessful. All right, I think I'm going to attempt to have Charlie spend a focus token and have a reroll. I can't believe how bad these dice are. All right, we'll try a reroll and see if we can get lucky. And we did. We're successful with a 5. We'll read the success portion. The cats are pleased to chat and share useful secrets. gain 2 clues. When this topic of food is brought up, dozens of cats take an interest. A crowd of hungry felines surround you. Become delayed unless you spend 1 health. If you spend the health, you feed the cats your rations and go hungry yourself. Close this gate. And Charlie will spend the health. That'll move him down to a total of 3 health. And finally, he's going to close the gate. And now we're going to move on to Carolyn Fern in London, and she's going to attempt to deal with that ongoing rumor. It says, as an encounter, an investigator on London may attempt to put a stop to the vile performance. Test influence -1. If he passes, he may spend clues equal to the number of investigators to solve the rumor. Well, she has the clues. It's a matter of whether she can pass that influence test. All right, Carolyn's influence is a 3, so she'll be rolling a total of 2 dice for the test, and she does have 2 focus tokens if necessary. I hope we can pass this. Here's the roll. And she did pass it. She has a 5. And she's going to spend 4 clue tokens, the number of investigators, and that's going to solve the rumor. Outstanding. It was unbelievably fortunate for us to not only be in London, but to have the character have the 4 clue tokens to spend to solve that. Otherwise, that could have been an ongoing thing for many, many turns. We got lucky there. All right, we're going to move on now to Silas Marsh. He is in Houston. All right, Silas is in Houston. There is a clue token there. He's going to do a token encounter, and he is going to attempt to research that clue. And it reads, you attend the opera Massa di Requiem per Shigrai and attempt to convince the authorities to stop the show. Test influence. All right, Silas has an influence of 3. There's no other cards that can help him, so he'll be rolling a total of 3 dice for the test. And here's his roll. He has a success. So we'll read the success portion. If you pass, gain this clue. All right, that is great. He is going to apply that clue token towards the occult research, and that's going to be our 3rd token. So we'll add that clue token towards the mystery, and now we only need 1 more clue token there to solve our first mystery. That's great. And now we'll move on to Diana Stanley. She's in Sydney. And she's also going to do a token encounter, and we'll hopefully be able to gain this clue, and then we would solve that first mystery. And the card reads, scientists report that their sample of radium was stolen. Your investigation indicates a connection to worshippers of Azathoth. We have to test observation. Diana has an observation value of 3, so she'll be rolling 3 dice for this test. And here's her roll. She has a success. If you pass, you discover the signs of cult activity, gain this clue. Outstanding. All right, she is going to apply that clue token to the occult research mystery, and we will solve that at the end of the mythos phase. We'll add that clue token towards the mystery, and we have sufficient now. We've got 4 clues, which is equal to the investigators. So at the end of the mythos phase, we're going to solve that. That's great. And speaking of the mythos phase, we're going to move on to that next. And the card's entitled Hindering Agony. We're going to begin with a movement on the Omen track. The Omen track is going to move from the green comet space to the blue star pattern. Now we have 1 blue gate open in Antarctica, so that will advance the doom track by 1. And that's going to move the doom from 13 down to 12. And the next portion of the card is going to be a monster surge. And that says, on each space containing a gate that corresponds to the current omen, that's where it's going to happen. So we'll be spawning 2 monsters on the gate in Antarctica. All right, and the monsters that appear are a maniac and a Dehole. Now, the Dehole has a reckoning effect, so we've placed a red capper on that as a reminder for us that that has a reckoning effect. Next up is we're going to spawn some clues. And the clues will spawn at the pyramids and in Panama, space 7. And finally we'll move on to the event. And it says the pain in your gut is agonizing, and you have had a headache for days now. No matter how hard you try, you cannot focus on your mission through the pain. When this card enters play, each investigator loses 1 health and 1 sanity and discards all focus. Investigators cannot perform focus actions. Oh, and that's an ongoing card yet. So the reckoning effect is going to discard the card, so that will be around until a reckoning effect happens. All right, each of the characters is going to lose a health and sanity and discard all of their focus. Oh, well, that's going to result now in Diana Stanley having a total of 6 health, 1 sanity. Charlie Kane is going to have a total of 2 health with 7 sanity. Carolyn Fern has 4 health and 6 sanity. And Silas Marsh has a total of 5 health and 3 sanity. All right, that brings the Mythos phase to a close, and with that, we're going to solve our first mystery. It says at the end of the Mythos phase, if you have clues equal to the number of investigators, solve the mystery. All right, so occult research is solved. We'll draw a new mystery. And the new mystery is Voice of Azathoth. Most musicians describe this 18th century Italian opera as unplayable. It comes as no surprise that the composer was executed for heresy. When an investigator would gain an artifact, he may gain the Massa di Requiem per Shaggy artifact instead. At the end of the Mythos phase, an investigator may spend clues equal to the number of investigators and discard the Massa di Requiem artifact to solve this mystery. All right, well, we're going to require to get an artifact. And so the best way to gain an artifact is at the expedition, and that's currently in the pyramids. So I think that's probably going to be our target. Now, the investigator with the most clue tokens right now is Charlie Kane. He has a total of 3. So he would need an additional one. There is one available at the pyramids, so he could go and combat that cultist that is at the pyramids and eventually take the expedition and gain the clue. That might be a way to do it. So we're ready to begin our next round. Our lead investigator is Charlie Kane. He's currently in Rome. Now that Hindering Agony ongoing card is going to be very tough. We won't be able to draw any focus tokens. We cannot perform focus actions either, so that's going to be tough. I think we're going to use this next turn to try to heal up our characters following that card. So I think Charlie's going to begin by doing a rest action. Now, Charlie has that back injury, and that says when you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard the card. So the rest action is going to give Charlie a health and sanity. That'll move him up to 3 health and 8 sanity. And now Charlie's going to make a roll and see if he can get rid of the back injury. He's a 5 or 6. And he didn't get it. All right, now we'll move on. He's going to take his second action, and that's going to be a gain assets action. So with the use of his personal assistant, he'll be rolling 5 dice. And he has 3 successes. That's pretty good. And he'll use that personal assistant to do the re-roll of a die. See if he can get an extra success. He did not. He has a total of 3 though. Let's see what we can get. All right, Charlie is probably going to be going to the pyramids, and he'll have to deal with that cultist as one of them, one of the items. He doesn't really need the enchanted blade because the cultist is going to be automatically defeated and he'll take a health loss in the process. So I think he's going to take the gambler's dice for 3. It's a trinket. It says you roll a minimum of 2 dice when resolving tests. Once per round, you may re-roll 2 dice with matching results when resolving a test. So that might be helpful for him in what he's got to accomplish in the near future. So we'll give Charlie the gambler's dice, and we'll redraw a card for the reserve, and that is determined to be Painkillers. Trinket. You may reroll 1 die when resolving a strength test as a part of an illness or injury condition effect. All right. So that's going to finish Charlie Kane's turn, and we'll move on to Carolyn Fern. Carolyn is also going to begin with a rest action that will bring her back up to full health. She's at 5 health and a total of 7 sanity. And I think Carolyn is going to attempt a acquire assets action as well. She has an influence of 3, so we'll have her roll 3 dice. And she has 1 success. And with the 1 success, I think Carolyn is going to take the Profane Tome. Item Tome may reroll 1 die when resolving a will test during a combat encounter. That could be useful, so we'll give that to Carolyn. Then we'll replenish the reserve, and that is Security Squad, Ally. When resolving a combat encounter, you may resolve a influence test as a part in place of the strength test using the same test modifier. All right. And now we'll move on to Silas Marsh. He is in Houston, Texas. And Silas is going to rest as well. And that's going to bring him up to a total of 6 health and 4 sanity. And then as his second action, he's going to travel along the rail line to Panama City. There's a clue token there, and the rumor is there. So he needs to get 1 more clue token anyway, so I think that's a good place to go. So we'll have him travel to Panama City. And that's going to complete his actions. We'll move on to Diana Stanley. She's in Sydney, Australia. And Diana is going to begin with a rest action. That's going to move her health and sanity up. She'll be at 7 health and only 2 sanity though. And I think as her second action, she's going to gather resources and she'll gain a resource token. And that's going to complete Diana Stanley's actions. We'll move on to the encounter phase, starting with Charlie Kane. Charlie's in Rome, and that city specializes in improving will, so that would be a good thing. And I think we'll do a location encounter in Rome. And the encounter reads, you speak to a number of Vatican authorities about your investigations. They carefully consider your story. Test influence -1. Well, if that's one thing that Charlie Kane is good at, it's influence. He has an influence of 4, and his personal assistant adds 1 to that. That gives him a total of 5 dice, and she also offers him a reroll during an influence test. So here's the roll. And he easily passes that. He's got 3 successes. It says if you pass, you are thanked for doing good work. Gain a blessed condition. That is great. The blessed condition is going to allow Charlie to use the blue dice, which gives successes on 4s, 5s, and 6s. That is great. And we'll move on now to Carolyn Fern in London, and she's going to draw a Europe card and have a London encounter. The encounter reads, a priest at St. Swithin's claims the London stone has revealed your fate. Gain 1 task unique asset. All right. And the task unique asset is sealing the old ones. When you pass a lore test while resolving a spell effect, you may discard the spell after resolving its effects to place an Eldritch token on this card. Then you may flip the card. All right. We don't know what that is going to be, but it sounds good. And now we'll continue reading. You listen to the voices coming from the stone. Test observation. All right, she has an observation value of 2. She gains 1 for the Chief Inspector, so she'll be rolling a total of 3 dice for the test. And here's the roll. She has a success. And it says, if you pass, they reveal dark secrets. Spawn 1 clue. All right, that's great. And the clue is going to be placed in the Himalayas. That's going to complete Carolyn Fern's encounter phase. We'll move on to Silas Marsh. He is in Panama. And I think Silas is going to attempt to do a research action to gain that clue. He needs that in order to try to solve that ongoing rumor that is in the same space. And the card reads, you seek help from the local Silver Twilight Lodge. Test influence -1. Silas's influence is a 3. He has no other modifiers he can use, so he'll be rolling a total of 2 dice for the test. And he has no success there. I have no way to re-roll that, so we're going to have to read on. It says, if you fail, their psychic attacks leave you dazed, and you awake in jail, lose 1 sanity, and gain a detained condition. All right, that's going to lower Silas down to 3 sanity, and he's going to gain a detained condition. And I think so I don't forget the detained condition again, I'm going to place that on the top of his stand, and that will remind me. And now we'll move on to Diana Stanley. She's in Sydney. Diana's going to do a location encounter, and she'll do an encounter in Sydney, so we'll draw an Asia-Australia card. And the card reads, Spearfishers teach you proper diving technique, improve strength. Well, that's great. That's going to move Diana up to a strength of 4 total. And we'll continue reading. You explore some of the harbor's many shipwrecks. Test observation. All right, Diana has an observation value of 3. And so she'll be rolling 3 dice for the test. And here's the roll. She has a success. And it says, if you pass, you find a useful object. Gain 1 random weapon asset from the deck. That's great. And believe it or not, she finds a Gatling gun. Item weapon gain +5 strength during combat encounters. You may re-roll 2 dice with matching results when resolving a strength test during a combat encounter. That's absolutely awesome. So that's going to complete our encounter phase, and we'll move on to the Mythos phase. And the card is revealed to be the Ulama of Iban Tulan. We begin with a Omen track movement. The Omen track is going to move from the blue star pattern to the fiery red circle. There are currently no red gates open, so we don't lose any on the Doom track. Next up is going to be a Monster Surge, and as we have no red gates open, that means we're going to have to spawn a gate. And let's see where that is going to spawn. And that's going to be in London. Gate spawns in London, and it's defended by a Ravenous Gug, and that has a Reckoning effect. And its Reckoning effect is to move the monster 1 space towards the nearest city. Well, it's already in a city, so it's going to remain there. That's a fairly tough creature. A -1 sanity test, -2 strength test with 3 damage, and it has a toughness of 5. That's a tough one. Next up is we're going to spawn some clues. And the clues are going to be spawned in Space 13, that's in Northern Europe, and Space 21, and that's in the Australian outback. And then we move on to the event. For centuries, the men of the Mosque of Iban Tulan have stood against the servants of Nefren Ka. Now they travel the world to undo the Black Brotherhood's evil. The event is each investigator resolves 1 effect of his choice. Recover 1 health and 1 sanity. Discard 1 impairment token. Discard 1 illness, injury, or madness condition. That's great. So we'll start with Diana Stanley and see what she wants to do. She has a total of 7 health and a total of 2 of 5 sanity. She doesn't have any impairment tokens, and she doesn't have an illness, injury, or madness. So I guess the only choice there is to recover the health and sanity. She'll gain a sanity then. That'll move her up to 3. Then moving on to Charlie Kane, he does have an injury, so we're going to have him heal up that back injury. Carolyn Fern has no injuries, illnesses, or madness conditions. She has no impairments, and she doesn't need to heal. She's fully healed, both sanity and health, so she'll get no benefit. And finally, Silas Marsh, I think he'll do the same. He'll just heal a sanity point and a health. And that'll move him up to 7 health and 4 sanity. One thing I forgot about is Carolyn Fern has this card, Death 13. It says whenever a mystery is solved, retreat doom by 1. So we will do that. That should have been applied when the mystery was solved earlier, but we're going to do it now. So we're going to retreat the doom from 12 to 13. That's going to be very helpful. And now we're ready to begin a new round, and we're going to start with Charlie Kane. He is in Rome. And I think Charlie is going to start with a acquire assets action. So he's going to test his influence of 4 plus the 1 from his personal assistant. Now he also has card that's called Gambler's Dice. Once per round, you may re-roll 2 dice with matching results when resolving a test. Now, Charlie Kane is blessed, so he is going to be using the blue dice now, which will be successful on a 4, 5, or 6. So he'll be rolling 5 dice. Here is the roll. And he has a total of 4 successes. That is great. So what we're going to do then is, take advantage of his personal assistant and re-roll one of the misses. That one's still a failure, but we have 4 successes. We got 4 points we can spend in the reserve. And I think Charlie is going to purchase the Enchanted Blade and the painkillers. He's going to keep the Enchanted Blade for himself, and we'll see if we can give those painkillers to someone. I suppose I'll give the painkillers to Carolyn Fern. And we'll replace those cards in the reserve. We get a magnifying glass and an arcane sutra. And for Charlie's second action, he is going to do a travel action to the pyramids, where the cultist and the expedition and a clue token lie. And that's going to end Charlie's action phase. We'll move on to Carolyn Fern. Carolyn is in London. There is an open gate there and quite a severe monster, so I think she's going to have to probably flee from there. And I think what she'll do is she'll begin by doing a travel action, and she's going to travel to Rome. She'll be able to provide some backup potentially for Charlie Kane at the pyramids. And then for her second portion of her action, she is going to gather resources. And that's her second resources token. We'll move on now to Silas Marsh. He is in Panama, but he is delayed, or I should say detained. Well, Silas is there and he's detained. The only thing he can do is to do a local action where he can test influence. And if he's able to pass, he can discard the card. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to have him test influence. He has an influence of 3. Here's the roll. He's successful, so he can eliminate the card. Now that was a local action, so now that he's done with the detained action, he still has 1 action left. And I think he will, it's a city, so I think I'll have him attempt to acquire assets. His influence is a 3. And here's the roll. He has 1 success. So that's, we'll see what we can get from the reserves. And I think he's going to just take the magnifying glass. That's a trinket. It says once per round, you or another investigator on your space may spend a clue to re-roll any number of dice when resolving a test. So that could be useful. And then we'll replenish the reserve, and that is a arcane manuscripts. Gain +1 lore when resolving spell effects. And that's going to end Silas Marsh's actions, and then we will go on to Diana Stanley, and she is in Sydney. And Diana is going to begin with a gather resources. That'll gain her a resource token. That's her second. And then she's going to do a move action. She's going to move along that uncharted path to the Australian outback. And she'll see if she'll be able to acquire that clue token. All right, we'll move on now to the encounters phase. We'll begin the encounters phase where Charlie is going to have to take on that cultist. And he'll have to begin with a will check. Charlie has the enchanted blade, and that gives him +1 to will during a combat encounter. So he'll be rolling a total of 3 dice, and he's rolling with the blessed dice. Here's the roll. He has 1 success, and that's sufficient to forestall any sanity damage from the cultist. And the cultist reads, after resolving the will test, lose 1 health and defeat the minion. All right, so the cultist is gone. Charlie's going to take 1 wound, 1 damage to his health, and then he can do another encounter in the space. And that health damage moved Charlie down to 2 health. So I think he is going to... I can either attempt the research for the clue token or the expedition. I think I'll have him try the expedition. And it reads, an Australian veteran of the Great War has a room in the Mina House Hotel. You hear rumors that over the years he has stolen several objects from inside the pyramids. When you confront him on the issue, he starts a fight with you. Test strength. Charlie has a strength of 2, and he's blessed, so we'll be able to roll 2 dice for the test. Here's the roll. He's got a 5 and a 6, so he has succeeded. We'll read the success condition. Humbled, the soldier tells you about the murals within the pyramid. Gain 1 clue. All right, that's great. And that is the 4th clue now for Charlie, which is great, and we'll continue reading. It says here, you search for them. Test observation. All right. Charlie has an observation of 3. Here's his roll. He has a success, a 6. And it says if you pass, find a secret painting. Advance the active mystery by 1. Well, that's great. We can place a clue token on the Voice of Azathoth mystery. So we'll place a clue token from the supply on that mystery, and that's 1/4 of the number of clues that we need to solve it. That's great. And that's going to complete Charlie's encounter phase. The new location of the expedition is the Amazon. And the Amazon already had a serpent people there, so that is the location of the expedition. We'll move on to Carolyn Fern. She's in Rome. Carolyn is going to do a location encounter in Rome. And the encounter reads, in a hidden room beneath the Colosseum, you find an ancient creature that once fought gladiators. Somehow the terrible beast has survived and attacks you on sight. Test strength. All right, Carolyn has a strength of 2. Here's her roll. She rolls a 3 and a 4. That's a failure. I have no way to re-roll or add additional dice, so we'll have to read the fail condition. If you fail, you are incapacitated by your wounds, and the monstrosity escapes. Lose 1 health and gain a leg injury condition. So she's going to gain a leg injury, and it says when you perform a rest action, you may roll 1 die. On a 5 or 6, discard the card. It has a reckoning effect, and we have to test strength. If you fail, we have to flip the card. All right. And now we'll move on to Silas Marsh. Silas is in Panama. He needs to acquire another clue token in order to solve that rumor, so I guess we'll do a research action. And the card reads, a team of geologists have disappeared after studying a chunk of rock that was retrieved from a nearby crater. You visit their lab and feel waves of strange energy emanating from the stone, eroding your body from the inside. Test strength. All right, Silas has a strength of 3. So he'll be rolling 3 dice for the test. And he has a success. He's got a 6. We'll continue on. It says if you pass, you safely examine the green stone. Gain this clue. All right, that's great. I think Silas is going to keep that clue so that he can use that against the rumor, rather than placing that using that towards the voice of Azathoth. So that's going to complete Silas Marsh's encounter. We'll move on to Diana Stanley, and she is in the Australian outback. All right, Diana is going to use a token encounter, and she's going to do a research encounter and attempt to pick up that clue. And it reads, inside a warehouse, you hear a clanging sound and discover a creature that resembles a metallic crate walking around on several legs. You try to follow the thing back to the cult's lair. Test observation -1. Diana has an observation level of 3, so she'll be using 2 dice for the test. And she has a 6. That's a success. If you pass, gain this clue and an additional clue. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. That earns Diana 2 clues, and she'll keep those. And then that'll complete the encounter phase. We'll move on to the mythos phase. And the card's entitled Augur of Destruction. We're going to begin with an Omen Track advancement. The Omen Track is going to advance from the red circle to the second blue star pattern. We have 2 blue gates open, so that's going to move the Doom Track by 2. And that's going to move our Doom Track from a 13 down to 11. And next up is a Reckoning phase. Now we have 2 monsters on the board that have Reckoning effects. First one is a Serpent People located in the Amazon. And that says we're supposed to roll a dice on a 1 or 2. The nearest investigator moves 1 step towards the creature. Rolls a 3, so that's not effective. The other creature is a Ravenous Gug, and that just simply says move the creature 1 space towards the nearest city. Well, London's already a city, so it won't move from there. Next is the Ancient One. He does not have any Reckoning effects. And the next step is Mythos cards, and we do have one of those. This is that Hindering Agony, and it says during a Reckoning, discard this card. So we're finally finished with that card. Next is to investigate possessions and conditions of the investigators. We'll begin with the lead investigator, Charlie Kane. He has a Blessed condition, and that has a Reckoning. Roll a die on a 1 or 2, discard the card. And here's Charlie's roll. Roll is a 1, so he's lost the Blessed condition. That's too bad. Next individual with a Reckoning condition is Silas Marsh. He has the Meditation card. It says you may flip this card. Well, let's try it. It says Meditation. You have learned to quickly quiet your thoughts. It has made it easier for you to cope with troubling thoughts and to let go of past traumas. Recover 1 sanity, then flip this card. Well, unfortunately, Silas is already at full sanity, but that's a nice thing to have. And that completes all of the Reckoning effects. Next, we have to spawn a gate. The gate is going to appear in the Amazon. That's a busy space now. And in addition to the gate, a cultist appears, along with the Serpent People that were already there and the expedition. And now the event. The old woman's fingers dig through the deer's entrails. reading the future by some unfathomable means. In the end, she warns of certain doom approaching for a large city. Draw and resolve a disaster unless investigators, as a group, spend clues equal to, well, between all of the investigators, we have a total of 7 clue tokens. So it could be done. We'd have to spend 4 of them. But I think we're just going to take the disaster card. Card is entitled Explosions in London. One by one, the city's landmarks inexplicably explode in an act of meticulously orchestrated anarchy. The subsequent riots and looting cannot be contained. Each investigator on London loses 5 health and 3 sanity and gains 2 madness conditions. London is devastated. Well, fortunately for us, there are no investigators in London. Looks like Carolyn Fern just escaped in time. All right, let's read about a devastated city. Some effects in this expansion, notably of those of the disasters, can cause a named city space to be devastated. When a space is devastated, discard all clues and defeated investigator tokens on that space. Search the expedition encounter deck for each card that corresponds to that space and return them to the box. Then place a devastation token on the space. Alright, there were 2 London cards in the expedition deck. Those have been removed. So now we are going to place a devastation marker on the board. I purchased a set of aids from someone on eBay, and it also came with these devastation markers. So we'll place those on London. Now what that does is that it's nice that it covers up the city space because London is no longer a city. The other information regarding a devastated city is if a clue would be spawned on a devastated city, discard the clue instead. A clue cannot be moved to a devastated city. A devastated space does not have a space type. It is no longer a city space. An investigator on a devastated space cannot resolve a general encounter or a location encounter that corresponds to his space. Instead, during the encounter phase, an investigator on a devastated space may encounter that space by drawing and resolving the top card of the Devastation Encounter deck. Devastation encounters are complex encounters that may require an investigator to resolve multiple tests. If all nine named city spaces on the board would be devastated, the investigators lose the game. It's unfortunate that the monster and the gate didn't go with the devastation, but those remain where they are. Alright, so that is going to end the Mythos phase. And I think we will change the lead investigator token to Silas Marsh. That's going to conclude the round, and I think we are going to end the video here. Thank you very much for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club and for our playthrough of Eldritch Horror. We'll be returning with episode 3 very soon. In the meantime, thanks for watching and have a nice evening.